refresher, the redo of the ground-based noise meeting from March 14th, rescheduled to Friday, April 7th. And if we could please call to order the SFO Community Roundtable Ground-Based Noise Subcommittee at 12:03 p.m. We are meeting at hybrid session at the San Mateo County Building at 455 Government Center in Redwood City, and also via teleconference for members of the public. Joining us today are the staff of the Roundtable, Kathleen Wentworth, our Roundtable Coordinator, Angela Montez, our Roundtable Administrative Secretary, Jean Rendell, HMMH Technical Consultant, and Bert Guenon from the SFO Aircraft Noise Roundtable. And I am Ann Schneider, Chair of the Ground-Based Noise, currently Mayor, City of Millbrae. And do we have anyone online that we need to recognize?
We currently do not have any other attendees present.
Minor correction on the San Francisco Airport, not the San Francisco Roundtable.
Did I? Oh, see, and I'm traveling a lot lately, so I feel jet laggy. It's all that airport stuff, you know. Sorry, Bert is from the SFO. It's right in front of me, Aircraft Noise Roundtable. So I just can't read today.
No, you said Roundtable again.
Oh. Airport Noise Office.
Yes, ma'am.
It's 8 years of calling it one thing, Bert. I apologize.
No problem.
Maybe we just want to make you one of us. That's all. All right. And thank you. And now if we can move on to roll call.
City of Millbrae,
Present.
Town of Hillsborough, Al Royce. No response. City of San Bruno, Sandy Alvarez, no response. We do not currently have a quorum for this meeting.
But it is my understanding that we can continue to work because we're not voting on anything today. We're not approving anything today. So today will be a really let's pull up our sleeves and a working meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
At this point on the agenda, if there are any public comments for items that are not on today's agenda, and for the record, I don't know what the camera sees, there are no public attendees here.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So there are no public attendees, but we will go ahead and just give the instructions for the record. So for anyone that will be in person, they will fill out speaker slips by the entry door. And for anyone attending on Zoom, we will use the raise hand feature to organize public comments. And everybody will get 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montez. And do we have anyone now that has come into the attendee list?
No, nobody.
Thank you. Okay, closing public comment for items not on the agenda. Opening up for agenda items. We've already done introductions and comments from the Council Subcommittee Chairperson. I'm only going to add that when I was mayor 2 years ago, we were going to have a meeting with the Millbrae community to talk about noise issues. COVID basically ate up that bandwidth. And then last year, different mayor. This year, we will be trying to have a couple of meetings for the members of Millbrae, Burlingame, San Bruno. It's open to anyone, but to go into a little bit more detail about how San Francisco Airport is unique, the runways, the things like that. And I will let you all know on that. I think it's going to be after Noise 101 because I'd love a refresher on Noise 101 and just help them understand. I do know in preparation for this meeting, I had posted out the last ground-based noise meeting to next door, and there were people that were very interested, and there are people that would be happy to host monitors if we get to that point. So with that, I will close introductions and comments. Opening public comments for item number 1, introduction and comments from the subcommittee chairperson. I see no slips.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. We did not receive any speaker slips and we have nobody on Zoom wishing to speak at the moment. Thank you.
And I think, again, I did get a couple of emails on people that would like to talk specifically metrics. But I think a lot of that could roll into the legislative meeting, just what metrics to get to for the FAA reauthorization.
Sorry, just a clarification, is that today?
It came in last night, but it wasn't specific for GBN. I'm just throwing that out there that I did get one public comment.
We did.
Secretary, you
Staff
didn't-
didn't get
we
any.
didn't
Let
get
me
it.
go ahead and send it to you.
Okay.
Okay,
So there's no request for written comments to be entered into the record for any of
No.
this.
Not at this time. Staff.
So,
Okay.
so that they.
thank you for catching me on
Yeah, we'll
that.
be able to- on the agenda.
Okay. All right, moving on to agenda item number 2, discussion on use of portable noise monitors and ground-based noise data gathering. And we've got myself, who really is going to listen to the professionals, and Eugene Rendell and Bert Renong of the SFO Aircraft Noise Office Manager on that. And we've got some attachments that go along with this. And do I need to announce them for the written record or oral record? So basically what we're looking at is determining which fixed noise monitors to use for SFO to obtain, God, I cannot speak today, to obtain the A and C weighted noise data from aircraft operations. B, determine the number and placement of portable noise monitors. C, determine the dates to conduct the noise measurements. And D, determine the noise data to be collected and reported by SFO to the ground-based noise subcommittee to understand the results. And with that, I would love to turn it over to Jean or Bert on that one.
Yeah, Ms. Jean, can you hear me okay still?
Yes.
Okay, so talk a little bit about item 1, or A, as you called it, the fixed noise monitors. What we want to do for those is compare to what we get behind start and takeoff roll in the communities near the airport as compared to those that are just inside and just outside the current 65 CNEL contour. And so, Bert, I'm looking to you to maybe see if there are monitors you would recommend based on the approximate location of the 65 CNEL based on the recent Title 21 reports you've done as to what you might recommend. And it's probably those that are out the gap communities that we have people, or we have noise monitors just inside and probably just outside the 65 CNEL.
Jean, you're a little bit difficult to hear. I don't know, is there anything we can do? And I think it's more kind of like being in an echo chamber.
Oh, I see. It might just be the acoustics of the room.
It could be. That's a little bit better.
Just turn the volume
Yeah,
up.
I turned it up.
Okay, it's my ears getting really old then. So what should we do first then?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to determine which fixed noise monitors. I don't have a graphic here. I'm going to go by.
So the fixed, we've got 8 and 9 in Millbrae and
So 8, 9, 10, 11, and 13. So 8, 9, 10, 11 are the diamond shape directly behind the runways. 13's up in Hillsborough, up in the hills. And those are typically what one might consider backblast.
11 and 13.
Yeah, so Bert, what I'm thinking though is that that's kind of what we're going to try to get from the portable noise monitors is more behind the outside of the 65. What I'm looking at is through the gap communities like 4, 6.
Oh, you want gap?
Yeah, because I want to see what the A and C weighting are of those operations as compared to what we then measure behind start and takeoff roll in those adjacent communities and see what the difference is in A and C.
So gap monitors directly in line on 1, 4, 6, and 18.
But yeah, so where is the CNEL contour now? It's between 4 and 6, isn't it?
Correct.
I realized in the airport report, it doesn't have the contours in the report. I know that Coleman and I were sitting next to each other on Friday trying to blow this map up to see if we could figure out where Coma's monitor was.
So I'm just thinking because of 4 and 6 and their placements in relation to the 65 CNEL, those might be good. One is inside, one is outside. We could also get up to, what is the next one? 18? Is that the next one?
Yeah, that's the one furthest down. Well, 19.
So we've
So
got,
we might even do the whole thing, right? Close in, we could do, and if this is too much work, let me know, Bert, but we could do 1, 4, 6, and 18.
Yeah, we can get all the data you want.
So if we can get A and C weighting on those,
That's easy.
yeah, and we could do that anytime. It doesn't need to be the same time that we're measuring for the portable noise monitors, because it's different noise sources that we're trying to capture.
I'll plan to give you whatever time period you want from 1, 4, 6, 18. And whatever other monitors you might want.
you wanted 1, 2, 1, 4, 6, 18?
1, 4, 6, and 18. One's the closest off the departure end. I don't know if you want that or not.
Is that in San Bruno? So it's, I haven't driven out to that one. Helps me to have a spatial relationship.
Yeah, it's a neighborhood in a backyard. And it's really hard to see unless you know what you're looking
Is
for.
it near the Bell? Remember the school that has been asking for help? The
Bel Air School.
Bel Air School. Is it in that neighborhood? I don't think it's
a little further away.
okay.
So,
This is San Bruno.
Yeah, so I think what that would do is give us close into the airport, further out from the airport, inside the contours, 2 of them, and then 2 of them outside the contours. And again, I just want to assess from aircraft events what the A level weight, what the A and C levels are in terms of SE and
Okay, and good for, I'm really loopy today, forgive me. So that will allow us to compare our existing monitor AC with some other ones that are currently inside and then just outside the 65 decibel contour.
yes, that are along the departure path, because that's a different source of noise. Because the contention again is that the 65 CNEL contours are underrepresenting those adjacent communities. So what we want to do is compare the A weighted and C weighted noise levels we get from the portable monitors to those that are in the gap area that we know are inside and outside of the contours.
Okay, and just because I don't have that pulled up in front of me, one is just outside the contour?
No, 1 is very close to the airport.
Solidly in, and 4 is solidly in, and 6 is, but 18 is on the outside.
sorry, what was the question?
1, 4, and 6 are inside the 65 decibel contour, and 18 is outside.
See, 1 and 4 are in, 6 is just outside, 18 is well outside.
Just outside.
Exactly. So 2 are outside, 1 just barely, and it could change, but 1 is just barely outside right now. The other one is well outside.
Okay, well outside. And that'll give us good comparison on the existing monitors and collect the 2 types of noise and be able to come
Right.
back there.
Right, because then we'll collect the same noise on the portable noise monitors to try to better capture the start of takeoff roll noise in the adjacent communities and compare the A weighted as well as the C weighted to see what the differences are.
Going backwards for the 8 through 13, when they were originally placed, I'm going to guess that was when we were still stage 3 jet engines and more of these areas fell within the noise contour. I'm pretty sure 9 would have been inside the contour then, because it's just up from my house. Well, a few
The
blocks.
original monitors were 1 through 8. We added 9 through 12, and then we did a much larger upgrade. And
You can never retire. You're the institutional memory.
no, I haven't written. I have my things.
Okay, yeah, just curious then.
But like 7 is in Brisbane,
Okay,
and it's outside.
and then 13,
It's Hillsborough up by the water tank, well outside near 280.
and 13 came on at a request of Hillsborough. Because now, if I remember what we talked about years ago now, they believed in our early GBN discussions that 13 may not be in the best place for picking up what it should. There's a water tower in front of it or a big tree. Maybe that tree is gone with the wind, who knows? But there was something about 13's placement. Al would probably know much better.
It was actually a fine site. They may have changed their mind on it.
I could be mishearing, just like we had to move the one of the Burlingame ones when.
Well, 13 used to be in a private property and originally owned by a owner of the airport who's happy to help out. And then the son inherited the property and wanted things, terms that we couldn't agree to, so we said take it out. And we did. And it's we used Christine Cronin at the time to help us find a new site. She offered the water tank site.
Just something it's going back years, and I haven't pulled out my notes to refresh from years ago. Okay, so we've got some before and after data. Have we done everything we need to do for item A, determine which fixed noise monitors to obtain A and C? Anything else then? We're adding 4 additional monitors.
From my perspective, it is because what, again, we wanted to compare are those A and C weighted noise levels inside the contour, which are the 1 and 4 and 6 is close, and then 18 is well outside, but it's a different, the other noise source, it's an overhead departure, right? And so we want to compare those noise levels to what you're getting in the adjacent communities through the portable noise monitors. So yes, I do think that that is more than sufficient for our purposes.
Kathleen?
The only question I have is the conversation between the two of you gentlemen talked about that we could get the data from existing data collection for any time period and it wouldn't matter, even though it was a different time period than the portables. Is that right? So I understand the concept. My only suggestion is if there's no reason, if there's no overriding reason to do it that way, I would suggest that you might want to do it like it at the same time as the portables, just so the public doesn't have any misunderstanding that the data is all of a piece in a certain given time.
Yeah, that's fine too. I was just saying we could collect it ahead of time if we wanted to and have that ready, but I understand that concern as well. And I'm amenable to it. If we want to just, be ready to go when we set the portables out, we'll collect the data on those at the same time. I'm good with that.
And also, I think I mentioned to you that you had a suggestion that if we could pull this off in a timely manner to try to gather data for the last week before construction is completed, or sometime before the construction is completed.
Yes.
To get some data in a unique circumstance that we would not be able to get another time. I'm not exactly sure what it's useful for, but it seems like it would be a really good idea. So that you would want the data obviously for the same week in that case for sure, both the portables and the permanents. So that's my only comment.
So do we want to pick a time for that or give you the flexibility between now and May? What do you think, Jean? So we're sitting here with, I'm hoping the last of the rain, I shouldn't say that. I'm Mario water board now, so rain good, but sun really nice to see.
Yeah,
Yeah, there we go. We like that. Is there a week or we give you flexibility? We don't meet again until July, correct? But it would be nice to know these things are happening.
So, Bert, are those dates pretty certain right now for construction? It didn't sound like it was. It sounded like everything was on time, but do we run the risk of setting the dates now and needing to change them later?
If we go towards the tail end of the project, we are at risk of missing. Do I think the contractor will finish more than a week early? No. Do I think the contractor will finish within that last week? Yes.
right now it's runway 1 left that's shut down.
Correct, our shortest run.
Okay, the shortest runway, and then it's gonna be runway 1 right,
No,
or just 1 left?
one right has been done already.
Okay, that was a few years ago.
Right. So,
Okay.
they're on a rotating schedule every 2 years.
Oh,
But it's also shut down, right?
It is currently shut down, being used as a taxiway.
Yep, okay.
so,
So is the plan then to go ahead and place the portables out sometime near the end of May to try to capture a few days, let's say, whatever that is, a few days of measurements without operations on the ones, and then we go into normal operations and
However
get-
long,
I would think, but didn't I hear this? Going to the end of May, we could be pushing it. If we looked at the second week of May, we'd be safe. If the estimated timeline was May 25th-ish.
If we go try to capture the second and third weeks of May, we should be all right. If you want to just get a little bit, then we go for the third week and just leave them where they are and roll right into normal operations and see what the difference is.
Okay. This is for the permanent and the portables?
Permanent's got a capture period. So all we have to do is go tap that well. Now, portables are the ones we want to get out there in this house. And also having them out there early is a good thing, because if we start looking at the data and we realize we're not doing too well, maybe we ought to move it, maybe we ought to
Mhm.
change our threshold settings on it, things like that. It's a good thing.
Okay, so we're looking at, I'm saying then more the second week of
well, I guess the key is how long are they available to us for this purpose?
So we have 4 monitors per your request the other day.
So right now we're moving into agenda item. Just to help Angela. Yeah, we're moving into item B, number 2B, determination, number and placement of portables.
For the record, do we acknowledge public comment? Item number 1.
I'm happy, if we're okay, I'd love to do public comment. Well, what do you want? You have to keep the minutes
After each item.
after
So
each
after
item.
we go
Okay.
to D.
Very good. I like it that way too. So to members of the public, we're on agenda item 2A, determining which fixed noise air monitors to obtain A and C weighted noise.
Oh,
And then the discussion of, right now we melded that into a discussion of trying to collect data while one right, one left is closed for, is it remodeling, upgrading, repaving? On that. I don't have any slips. I'm looking at our, not really a public member, but should be a fully qualified roundtable member on here. Okay. Do you have anybody on that?
I had a hand raised earlier.
Oh, okay, we've got a visitor.
Oh, we have 2.
Yeah, we do have members of the public that have joined, so let me share my screen for the timer, and I will call on public member Madi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Coming in
go ahead.
great.
Yes, okay. I'd appreciate if you can talk a little more about placing noise monitoring around R18, R19, as those seem to have been seeing increased usage and low altitude flights because of some of the closures that were mentioned and the repaving that was happening. So yeah, just wanted to see if there was any consideration for placing noise monitors around R18, R19, as well as latest data from those fixed areas as well. I'd be curious to hear if those now qualify or would be close to this 65 dB contour. That's it for me.
I think those are good questions. Do you want, go ahead.
Through the chair, I'd like to answer those. Mr. Mahdi, I believe.
Yes.
Our R18 and R19 are noise monitors. They're active. They're running right now. If you go to our website at noise.flysfo.com, you can see those and see the data that they're streaming live. you can also go back and forth, backwards and view what it's transpired over the last, I think it's 2 months, 3 months. And then the quarterly noise reports do keep that data as well. So no, we won't be putting additional monitors there.
Mr. Motti, it's a little bit out of our range today, but I think what I heard you say is now that the monitors, some of them anyway, are going to be collecting C-weighted noise as well as A-weighted noise. With the addition of that, would it expand the contour? So if 18 is outside the 65 decibel contour, but under adding new weighting, would that potentially expand the contour? I think that's a question all of us are trying to figure out for the close-in cities. And then would it reflect into the cities closer to the gap departure for you for 18? But I think that's a great point.
Well, yeah, no, I think you definitely, sorry, I was gonna say, you definitely captured the gist of my question, which is, yeah, given the repaving that's happening and the new waveforms that are being captured on R18, R19, looking at the data from the last week, for example, would they now qualify for that contour? I understand that may be part of that discussion or later part of the discussion, but that was exactly my question.
And I would probably say, as much as if I lived where you are, I would say it's unfortunate, but the closure of runway 1 left is only temporary. So that increased use of 28 departures is only temporary.
Correct.
Did I captured all of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Motti. Did we have that second hand?
That was the only hand raised.
Okay. All right. Closing public comment on agenda item 2A, moving on to 2B. And now it's the portable monitors. And I think the outstanding question was, how many do we have for, and when might we have them? And Kathleen gave me an update in terms of.
The dates are actually items C, if we wanted to stick with in order as Angela suggested.
They're on the screen. Oh, okay. So let's just go to placement of the 4 portables then. Thank you, Jean.
Yeah, is it possible to bring that map back up?
Yes.
Because I'm really looking more to you, and I will be a technical resource, but what areas do you believe that we ought to be measuring this in your communities? 8 is already there. We can get data from that one as well. That's different than the data out the gap. We could also get 9 and 11 and 10. But then where would you want the portable monitors to better assess how, one, the noise moves up the hill, and also where people are experiencing, those, what I've heard from you a lot of times is that late night rumbling, from the departures off of.
And I guess this comes into the 4 and how long would they have to be placed? What I've done so far for Millbrae is reach out into the community that has been contacting me and said, would you be willing to put that up? So I think we can find the households. The questions is, when we did the spectral analysis study, we created some fictional locations, didn't we? Where there would have been a monitor. Would it make sense to go back and test where those monitors were from the spectral analysis study? And then I know Burlingame is not with us today, but my health club prime time is on Rollins Road. And if I'm swimming, granted the swimming pool is between the wall of 3 buildings, so it could concentrate, but that is also where Burlingame is building an awful lot of housing. There's one right on the Millbrae border. Prime time is about a quarter mile farther down, and there's a huge development being built across the street from prime time. If I were Burlingame, I might like to have some idea of noise there.
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, I don't have the report in front of me, unfortunately, but if I remember correctly, most of the positions that we modeled the noise were along or near the 101 to try to assess the effectiveness of a barrier. But I think what we're trying to do here is very different.
Well, this is interesting. I think Burlingame's brand new apartment building is right tucked into, it's gonna be in the 65 contour. I didn't follow how they approved that building, but it's huge. I can see it from our buildings. It's tucked right where that green line crosses over 101. On there, right at the corner of Adrian Road on there. But that's just one idea of capturing that noise now. And when I sit there, I try to figure out, is it a runway 1 departure, or is it a 28 departure, or is it a combination of two?
Through the chair,
Mhm,
would you
please.
like to share this,
Yeah, that would be great.
if I can?
Or should I just pull it up on my?
Somebody has to share it.
There's the area you were talking about.
Well, I know in the spectral analysis, we used Central Park and Millbrae as
Right.
one of those
This
areas.
is what you're talking about,
Oops.
Burlingame.
Yeah, pretty much right. I can see the street, I can see the junction. It's right where you see the two on-ramps onto 101, and then that's Adrian right there, that little one that's going perpendicular into the freeway.
And this is wrong.
Actually, I can. Interesting. Burlingame's new apartment building is this right here, and prime time is farther down here-ish on here, and you hear quite a bit of noise. Now, if I were Burlingame, would I want something there, or would I want something up? I don't know which Burlingame neighborhoods complain.
Well, we already know that site 8's really extremely difficult site to.
Well, you also see by the contours, that's not where the maximum direction of noise is either. It's kind of in between.
Well, we had hung on to it for a while for historical purposes, to be able to compare historically to new.
Right. But what I'm thinking is if we, for the portables, we would want it somewhere close to those lobes that are there, but then also further out from those lobes to see, again, if the 65 is not being well depicted due to the start to takeoff room.
You know, it's also, I wonder if that's why it's so quiet right now with one way left at my house, except for some of the bigger planes in the middle of the night. It's the fact that the sound goes off like this, goes off in that angle. And then we've got our hills. And I didn't know if we had a topo map. But maybe you did that, Gene, for the spectral analysis.
Well, we had terrain in it. We didn't show the terrain necessarily on the map, but
So if part of the theory is the sound getting louder as it goes up a valley? This is harder. I'm open to what you all think. Other than that, other than me asking my neighborhood and Al and member Ortiz to ask their neighborhoods, where do you think you're hearing it? And then we kind of go out and listen for a little bit. Sadly, the worst of the noise is between midnight and 2.
Well, my personal advice would be, you know, your constituents. We can look at the data that we're getting, which isn't much in the way of calls, and see where the hot spots are. And then you can tell us where the hot spots are, the ones that are calling you and not calling us. And we combine it and see where we go.
Okay. Just for the record, I have never encouraged the people of Millbrae to call, because when I first joined the roundtable was when Next Gen came in, and we had so many people that were so unhappy, and there was nothing we could do, and that made them that much more unhappy. So to me, until we got closer to possibly having some kind of answer for something, there was no reason to get people. And in Millbrae, you know, a lot of us do have relationships with the airport, and it's not like we hate the airport. It's more if they can't sleep. I think more of the Pacificans who had an autistic child when Next Gen changed, and then that child's complete life was disrupted. You know, they're a different case on that. But I can definitely go out, and I started doing that, and we'll have this, maybe that's what the next step is, Millbrae, to have this meeting. And I'd love to have a big map and just put pins in a map saying, well, we're hearing it more now, we're hearing it, this way. A lot of our noise increase did happen after the runways moved a little bit closer, hence the reason for keeping 8 for the historical data to the current data. But if in time we need to move 8, then to get real information, then it's time to do that. So if that's where we're at right now, and Al's not here and Ricardo's not here, how far along can we get on agenda item 2B in terms of locations of monitors? I know we use the park, and the park is not protected. And in fact, that's where 2 huge trees came down. If we had a monitor there, right where we might have lost that monitor. So in good sight, it was good that that got delayed because those trees managed to come down and not kill or hit a car, not kill anything, not hit a car. But now there's this big hole in our central park. But I do have a neighbor. I wrote to Kathleen, if it's problematic to use my yard, I can ask my next door neighbor, because we're just 3 houses down from the park, so it would be protected in there. If you think that's a location.
As far as your house goes,
It's more that there was a member of the public that complained that I was likely getting special treatment when we tested that. We were just calibrating it, right? When it was in my backyard, you were calibrating the sound.
No, it was brand new to us. We were
Just testing.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't necessarily I don't care if I'm a target for this, but again, if you all think it's better to put it in a neighbor's house just politically, I'm happy to go talk to the neighbor on that one.
Yeah.
So that might be one location. I have another resident farther up the hill, but because I don't know where 9 is exactly, they might be very close to 9. And I'm wondering if we have to have, let me rephrase. We want to at least get one in Burlingame and at least one in Hillsborough. I'm really going to have to go back to Al and Ricardo. Sorry, I'm being very casual today. Member Ortiz, member Royce, and get help from their neighbors, their neighborhood too, and try to figure out 2 there. I know only because I've been up there how loud it is on 280 at Hillsborough. There's also, although, a huge amount of noise from 280.
So you were mentioning the location of 9. It's actually off Hillcrest, near Millbrae Ave.
Oh, it's over there.
Can you put up
Okay.
the map again?
I'm pulling, yes, just a moment.
That wouldn't be anywhere near like former Mayor Bar Kirschman.
I don't know.
Okay.
That number.
Okay.
Yeah, so Millbrae is this right here. Oakview is this.
It is really close to Sir Optimus Park, then I think.
It is in,
Oh, it's in Sir Optimus Park. Ah, okay. How come I've
there's
never
that
noticed
ring
it?
belt that runs right through.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
Okay. Which is that line? I mean, I have a theory that some of the 28 departure sounds getting captured by the new hotel and then curved, and it comes into almost a straight line between City Hall and my house and Sir Optimus Park. So it's, I have to go back and look at some before hotel, behind hotel data.
Can you zoom back out a little bit? Oh, thank you. So if you look at the contour in the runways, you can see that the noise goes out at about that 45-degree angle. So if we went out, it would be towards the Green Hills Country Club is the angle. And so R8 and R9, unfortunately, are kind of in between that potential direction of the maximum noise levels that would be emanating from the start and takeoff roll. I just wanted to point that out.
So like Helen Drive, that's called Meadow Glen neighborhood right there. Helen Drive is the longer street. Let me go, I'll make an action item for me to go listen there. And I've got some.
And is there something, if we're going to go up towards Green Hills Country Club, is there something close to the contour down there that is accessible? We could put a monitor in, like between the
To the
101.
ball. We could always ask the golf course if they're open to doing that. The golf course is actually really, really hilly, and I'm gonna be there next Tuesday. We're hosting the Women's Collegiate Golf Tournament. And Councilwoman Pappen lives in that neighborhood tucked up in there.
I'm just thinking that if you look at these two lobes, we could go both directions. We want one pretty close to where the green line is, and then out from there towards Green Hills Country Club. And then on the other side, we want to go, and maybe R11 is a good one. And maybe we just need something down closer to the 101.
Okay, Jean, point me direction so I can write down streets. So R11, I think that's Ray Park.
It's school.
So
Yeah.
that's the one right next to Lincoln.
Yeah, but I think the neighborhood is Ray Park in that area.
And then you're right. So we could probably use R11 as one. So that's not going to take up a portable, which is good. But then I'm saying go down towards that contour then. And is there something between R11 and the contour that we want to pick up with a portable?
So that's gonna be the new residential.
It's fairly noisy area, Jimmy.
Okay. No is acceptable. I just wanted to ask. How about on the other lobe then?
Community,
What's that?
community noise.
Right. And so what about the other side of R8, the other lobe? Is there something close to the green line there that is? No, the other side.
Well, along Rollins Road, along that side, you mean inside the contour?
Well, something close, if not inside.
Well, that's where Bert had wanted to move. R8 was to the I'm gonna call it the Moxie Hotel, but they got caught in COVID by the A-Loft. That's near the Westin and the A-Loft, and then some small commercial or small industrial buildings on the Burlingame side.
Well, that's still of interest. I mean, maybe we killed two birds with one stone, Bert. We could put a portable out there and see how well it does at measuring that noise.
Yeah, I'd actually thought about trying the retention ponds here on airport property.
With one of them, the portables? Bert with one of the portables? I mean,
Yeah.
the portables,
Yes.
I mean, I know they're out. Just, we haven't really looked at Woodside or Portola Valley or Brisbane or Daly City. Those are the four that get the.
I have 4 in my office.
We haven't talked about them in years, though.
Are not being used right now,
Okay,
and I'm gonna dedicate to this project.
that are different than
If
the
we
four.
need to dip into our other 4, there are 8 total,
Okay,
then we need to pull this out and start saying, we're supposed to start monitoring in Brisbane around April 28th, and then in May 23rd, we go down to Woodside and Portola Valley.
so 4, and then the potential of other 4 if the noise monitoring subcommittee is.
And I don't know what the HMMH had quoted you in the study on this, is add more monitors.
This is, I don't have any bright light bulb going off in my head on how to do this. Other than me going out and asking my residents and getting the other 2 to ask theirs. I just know from prime time just how incredibly loud it is, and just can't, and it's not arrivals, it's departure information. And I don't know what Ricardo would want for his people.
Well,
There's a lot happening on Rollins Road. Again, right across the street from prime time, they tore down a distribution center and are building, I don't know how many stories of residential in there. And then there's the big one on the corner. And then there's our biotech being built. So there's construction noise.
well, if I can offer you, Madam Chair,
Please,
I would go into the noise monitoring system, query how many reports we've had over, I don't know. I'd even go back 5 years. And we could, do a pin map or a heat map, see what's going on.
Oh, that would be great.
Get that information from you and your colleagues. And then pull the information and see where the clusters.
That sounds fantastic. Okay. And then maybe, again, I hate to sick people filing complaints, but maybe actually tell them, if you're hearing this, what you're hearing, can you report it so we can try to figure out? I mean, in my mind, the noise is coming off, but it's finding this hillside going up, and it's either following the valley or it's following the edge. I think it's following the valley. But to me, that would be what we'd like to test for. If that's what makes SFO unique, having hillsides right at the end of runways that most other airports don't have, then trying to identify how that noise is moving around the hills and the valleys would at least give us some data. Maybe there's something we can draw from that. Does that make sense? Otherwise, I can just tell you, and we've already talked, those Amazon flights. If I had anything in the world, I would say Amazon flights cannot fly between midnight and 5.
So we have 4 monitors available, right?
I have 4 in my office ready to go right now.
So you're thinking one
So
closer in Ray Park in Burlingame.
And Bert, could you bring the map up just one more time? Because from a technical perspective, I would tell you what I would personally do with those 4. And then you can try to figure out from where people are concerned with the noise of maybe moving those locations. But again, if you see those 2 lobes on either side of R8, and if you look at the end of each of those runways, that's the direction. So between the runway and the golf course there, and then between the runway and R11 is where I would put the 4 monitors, somewhere in those 2 areas. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So as if they were just bulging back out, we're trying to see if we found noise, the contours might bulge.
Yes, and it would bulge in that direction.
Right.
Okay.
Those 2 lobes would
Okay, I think
continue
it's-
to spread out and go with the V shape in the middle, the pocket of the V.
Do you mind zooming in again between R8 and R11? That bulb.
I'm sorry, Linda, say.
Can you zoom in again between the bulb between R8 and R11? It's like right by in and out. Right?
What was that?
I think it's right by the in and out, that bulb, lower bulb.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
or over Hawaiian sushi.
Yeah, right.
Did he want it between 8 and 11?
I mean, I do think Rollins Road, I know there is a lot of community noise, Bert, but Rollins Road with all the new, because there's so much new residential coming in there. It serves, Gene, I hope you can hear me. It serves Gene's
I hear you. Yep.
call request, and because there's more residential coming in there. And because I think there's an opportunity to place it somewhere. I mean, I think the city is doing so much over there, they probably get permission, whatever. Anyway, it's my opinion.
Would you put them on rooftops? Rollins Road, the existing buildings are a lot of 1-story concrete tilt-ups.
You
That's
could do
why they're all-
rooftops. Yes, you could do rooftops if we can secure them some.
We have, you don't like to.
You don't
just
like
for that. Trained in fall prevention and all that fun stuff, with the harnesses. But we have.
So Helen, Green Hills, Rollins Road, and then pointing up towards Hillsborough. I actually don't have my geography really good to know what's unincorporated Burlingame and what's Hillsborough.
Unincorporated Burlingame is hillside, both sides,
On either, okay,
and Hillsborough would be like out of the parallel streets to the south.
well, maybe with Al not being here, we just leave. So we've kind of got a vague idea for 3 of them, but we'll get the heat maps on there. These are all still pretty close in. Will we eventually have to pull some up higher to see if the theory that the noise is getting louder as it goes up the hill is true? That's what one of the spectral analysts said. Like it's 76 degrees or 76 decibels at Central Park in Millbrae, which is that little green. One of the spectral analysis locations was right there. On
Yeah,
there,
that would work.
which is louder than what some of the Bayside Manor people experience. Although we've been having community meetings down there, and you have to stop talking. Depending on, you just have to stop talking till the planes move away. In the Bayside Manor, near where our 8 is.
Just
At
back
least-
to Hillsborough a second, I think the couple complaints have been coming from, I wanna say Upper Burial Lane. So the lower part of Burial Lane, El Camino is still Burlingame, when you start to go up in
Mhm.
Hillsborough. And that is the source of at least one.
Okay. I think we kind of lost that group from our old ground-based noise days. Remember that whole group would come.
Yeah, one of the people lives there. I'm pretty sure.
What was the lane again?
Burial Lane,
There.
Burial Lane, it's BAR.
RRIOLT. Burial.
Oh, okay, French.
It's just south of Ralston. It's just an idea, and it would be. Which one's R11? That's the Lincoln one?
Yes.
Yeah, it's south of there, so it might be too far south, but it would be like down the hole.
But it would help, Linda, because I keep hearing when I'm in prime time just how much noise is kind of coming in that direction.
Yeah,
And I can sit there if I'm kicking and watch the planes come in and out. But it also could be unique for that building, just capturing the noise in it.
anyway, this is a bit up the hill.
Okay, well, that's what we want to test.
Yeah, I mean, it would be residential.
Okay,
You can do that, right, for residential? We don't like to.
No, we definitely like residential, provided they can give us a secure place that's equidistant away from tall
All those
objects.
lots are quite large, they have.
Well, I agree that we like to be welcome as well.
Yeah,
well, just it keeps the equipment safer too.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us have had enough vandalism in little cases. We just had a fire caught in our one nice place in Millbrae. So we want to make sure everything's safe on that. Okay, go ahead, please.
Jean, I'm interested to make sure that you've specified sufficiently for us the areas that you think will give you the best data return. Regardless of the city they might be in, but.
Right, and so the two noise sources are the ends of the runways, right? So if you go out, if you draw lines from the end of the runway out to those lobes that exist, and continue out in that line, anywhere along that line or within a few blocks of that line is the area in which I'm saying is the maximum directivity of the noise. So that would be my recommendation. Because if the lobes were to continue out, they would continue out in that direction.
Can I just share my screen for just a minute?
I was just thinking, Jean, if you and or Kathleen could take this map and kind of shade out the area that you're talking about.
There we
Yep.
go.
I could do that. But yes, Bert, I think just did it, but that's pretty close what he just drew.
And then does it? When I first joined the roundtable, Bert, you guys did this really great 3-dimensional, this is what it looks like when an airplane is arriving into SFO. And I've been trying to wrap my head on low frequency noise that same way, and it's tough. And I'm a visual learner, so it's just tough to try to, if I can't visualize it, I can't explain it to people.
Yeah, actually, Gene Rydell's company, HMH, did a metric called low frequency sound level, LFSL, and they showed some contours for this. Oh my, it was just really interesting. It's very cloud-like.
Which is how I try to explain that it kind of goes out like that, but it kind of goes out that
Well,
way.
when you think of it versus the contours that we're looking at here, these are very angular, very sharp. This is the A weighted. When you look at the C weighted, they're billowy and large.
There's
Low
there's a
frequency.
point I would love to get, even if the FAA doesn't agree with it, that map, but with C-weighted noise. With that, and then with this data of how it travels or how it does or does not attenuate. That would help me explain to my residents. And, you know, ultimately, if more of my residents or Burlingame or Hillsborough fall within the insulation contours, at least it gives them a place to feel like they're being listened to.
So Jean, if I could follow up the question. Now that we have those little lines back again. This is just very nice.
I was gonna say, did you want me to
Yes.
capture that?
Just great, yeah, perfect. So Jean, if we're just going to be using the available 4 portables, and I think we need to kind of assume that this study will be the study that will, you know, give us the data that we need to conclude this particular aspect. Do we need to have look at portable noise monitors that are sort of at the end of those orange lines, far enough away to capture the farthest, relatively the farthest out it's reasonable to be assumed.
Well, to an extent, right? I mean, we want to be, I would also like to have one around the green lines because that's where the CNEL contour is now. And then I'd like something further out around like R11 and that on the other side as well. But if you wanted to go further up the hill or something, if that makes sense, I'm not opposed to that.
So what would you recommend?
So I would recommend using R11. I would recommend somewhere on that yellow line.
Gee, we need R11, right? We've got R11.
Use it.
No, I'm just saying use it as part of the study.
Okay,
Okay.
for the
And
4.
then, so that's 0 because we still have 4 left. Okay, but R11 we could use because it's in the right location. We would put then one portable near where the green and yellow cross on both sides. So there's 2, right? On both of the yellow lines where it crosses the green line. Somewhere around in those areas, I would use 2 of the portables and then one of them around the country club, somewhere around in there. And then you have a 4th one that you could go even further out, or if you had a hot spot, maybe use that for a hot spot.
And are there any particular concerns in San Bruno that we're not addressing? They seem to be largely outside of the orange lines. Do we have any?
The one area in San Bruno that has asked for help is the school that falls just outside the 65 decibel contour.
Right, and that's down.
It's,
down at the area near R8. I mean,
Uh,
between R8 and R22, but
there's ours, there's our school. I think it's closer to R5 or between R5 and R1.
oh, okay.
Bert, is that where the school is?
Yes, if I recall. So
It happens to be one of the lowest income neighborhoods in the county.
You talking about Bel Air?
Yeah.
yes,
It's right. What is it, San Bruno Ave, it's just south of San Bruno Ave.
Just south of 380. Oh, here's San Bruno Avenue.
so-
Yeah, south.
Just a little bit up and over. It's also floods. It gets a little bit of everything. So it's nice to give them a little bit of love.
Well, yeah,
Well, so are the fixed monitors okay for that? Because again, we're doing 1, 4, 6, and 18.
yeah. They would capture that.
5 does a good job as well.
So add that to the mix. Data collecting.
Whichever one you want.
Yeah, we would
Where's-
need to
where
add
is-
5 to
Why don't we add the
Where
5?
is Ave 5? That
and one's already, so it's 1, 4, 5, 6, and 8, 18. For those.
And they already exist, and so those, yes, okay.
That's in Bel Air.
It's very close.
It's very close to the
Yeah.
school.
But those are pre-existing permanents, so we'll just add them to the data
Right.
capture,
I need to
okay,
do
data
that as well.
download or whatever.
We might have done that before you joined us, Linda. Identifying,
Yeah, okay, sorry, I'm just trying to inform you. It's really close to the school, R5.
Yeah, I think we identified 8, 9, 10, 11, and 13, and 1, 4, 6, and 18 of the permanent monitoring.
And now
To
1,
be
4, 5,
to
6.
data dump from those, and then this is the add-on to it, yes. Sorry.
So in terms of the hotspot, again, because I pay attention to it, I could claim that, except not right now with runway 1 left down, that we're a hotspot, so that that would probably match the way where I am. I'm 5 houses down from Central Park on that. So, or the neighbor next door, same thing. Do
So how close are you, for my benefit, how close are you to those yellow lines?
you want to expand that? Right. Keep coming, keep coming. Ooh, we twisted around here. Maybe not so big. Going that way. So at Green Hills, I have a geography degree. This is Central Park.
Yes.
This is Palm Avenue right here. I am 5 houses in, right about there. So that's why we're getting this noise here. And then remember, Bert, I told you, we get some northerly noise, which might be 28 departures. And that's pretty close to where the spectral analysis point was for comparison.
Yeah, and it's not far off. I said we could be 2 to 3 blocks off of those yellow lines, so it's still, you know, you're in that area. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
You're
And that's when I try to explain to people how it moves out at the same there. So do we have enough then? All right, opening this up for public comment. If there's any members from the public, there are no slips.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We do not have any speakers left, and we don't have anyone on Zoom wishing to speak.
Thank you. Okay, and then moving on to determining the dates.
Where we started almost, right? Trying to be out of order.
Well, the dates aren't so difficult then if these are the 4 sitting in your office. The dates become more problematic if we want to add a few more and then have to ask Brisbane, would they be willing to give up? I would only point out that Peter Graves, who didn't speak last or Wednesday night, but came in, Graves, he and I have had conversations of the low frequency noise that Brisbane experiences. And I don't know if we finish this area, if someday we go back, and I think Brisbane could appreciate getting C-weighted noise from the monitor up there too.
Well, they'll also learn
Outside the
something
study of this one.
just, they'll learn from the study too, though, what we're seeing with difference between C and A weighting is 2 different areas. And then yet he's another 3rd area. So I think he'll get something out of this, but you're right. We may need to go and address that separately.
Because it's, when I do talk to people, I say, I know that you're experiencing that low frequency, depending on where you are, you're feeling the same thing we're feeling. They just have planes on top of them. And is it being captured then or not?
Right.
Then on to dates, what do you think?
So it sounds like, if I could start, Bert, since you stated it earlier, probably start around mid to late May before the construction is over, and then continue through June. Is that too long? That's like 6 weeks.
no, as long as we are able to find willing hosts, we can do that. And you're willing to deal with the data.
Great, that works.
So my next question is was that R11 that I kept referring to that was in that area? Do you get with a NEEM better correlations than you were? Is
Yeah.
it correlating to starter takeoff rule numbers
Yes,
better?
we can give you all of it.
But you are getting correlations?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
awesome. It's great news. Because that's ultimately what we want in the data, is to be able to correlate to aircraft operations for those portables. So, and if you can't do it at 11, you probably can't do it at the others. So just wanted to ask the question.
Yep.
And will you be able to do those correlations with the data in your system and then get us the data, or how is that going to work?
Oh, yes, we're able to do it for our reports.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, this is-
So if you look at a current airport director's report,
Yep.
Current portable noise monitoring report, you'll see everything we can do at the moment.
Okay, so we will want A and C weighted SENELs for any aircraft event that's correlated to noise.
Okay, due to add C weighted here soon. I'm not gonna commit, I think it was around June that we committed before. So we were gonna add C weighted and then and above after that, before the end of the year.
So you don't have C weighting yet?
We have this, we're just busy checking it out, make sure that,
Got it. Yeah, okay, understood.
It's-
You're collecting it, you're just not reporting it yet.
correct, it's a unique animal, we're trying to figure out what we're doing.
No, I get it. I get it. Yep.
Question, and a little bit of the feedback from the emails that I received after Wednesday's full roundtable. We all know the data gets averaged and we lose things by averaging the data. Is there a way on this AC weighted comparison to also do a day? I'm less concerned about day, evening, but day, night.
So
Can
you
we
wanna
pull
use
out the
a
night?
DNL measure.
Okay.
Well, that's my intention. If I get SENEL data, I will then be able to do separate that out by day, evening, and night, and then put it all together for a complete CNEL. So you'll have a full picture once I get the SENEL data.
So just to see where, so that you guys know where I'm coming from, given that the legislative committee, we don't do it as much at the full roundtable, but we're really looking at health impacts. And health impacts learned from how quiet we were during the first year of COVID, collectively, the world on that. So if we could separate out what happens at night, which interferes with sleep, which interferes with adult productivity and child's ability to learn and health, that would be a great outcome on that. And maybe that means when we go to the FAA for reauthorization, and when I was at NLC, National League of Cities, everybody's concerned more about nighttime than daytime. You know, if we could push more things back to daytime, I know it's problematic for our airport, but if we could just give people a good night's sleep, then that would be a big win all the way around. How we might accomplish that, discussion for another time. But that would be great, Jean, Bert, if we could. And I think that's what's going to have to go to the FAA, that you have to stop doing 365 24-hour averages because you're losing what's really happening on there. Okay, cool. That is opening it up then for any public comments for agenda item 2C. This is the date, the timing of these data collection for late May, early June, potentially a 6-week area. Did we capture that, Angela?
Reporting did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know this is tough because we're brainstorming, so I appreciate you always work miracles. So
And thank you, Madam Chair. We do not have any public comments.
very good. Closing 2C, moving on to 2D. And just for everybody else here, Kathleen and I were looking at the rest of the agenda. To me, this is the most important thing we're doing. And if we pull some other things off, like the SEA-TAC study to the next meeting, so be it on that. We appreciate all the time you put in for that, but we're running out of time. Moving on to 2D, determine the noise data to be collected and reported by SFO and the GBH and subcommittee, and understand the results. And I think this is fairly easy. We've kind of talked about it, but
Yep, we already did. My bad. I already went to that.
Okay.
Didn't realize that it was.
so that would be the question. Did we give it where Angela can capture it? Knowing that we're not noise engineers.
So again, I'll just reiterate that what I'm going to want are A-weighted and C-weighted SENELs that are correlated to specific aircraft events at a minimum. which includes the time of day, so that we can do the time of day analysis that you just asked. So it'll have SENEL, A weighted and C weighted, and the time that the event occurred.
Okay, so time critical. Time is critical. Is that gonna give us something so that when we meet the next time or we report at the full roundtable, that they see the direction that we're going in?
They would be able to see.
Okay,
So basically, I mean, I'm just going to spool off the data from Gene, and HMMH will take it from there. The heavy lift will be the report, and we just have the bulk.
okay. With the report, I don't think we've really talked about report format, but the maps can help. So even just those 2 yellow lines can give people a visual. Well, that's why I'm so far away from the runway, but I'm hearing this because the sound is moving that way.
We'll come up with better images.
Yes, and that's a good start. I'm happy with that, but yeah, I'd love to see that. And I do like the heat map idea, because it gives people a better visual. Because sound is tough. All right,
So what we still need to do, just to remember, we need to identify those 4 locations between now and the middle of May. So we have a month.
so an action item. Well, I will say that I will reach out to member Ricardo, member Ortiz, and member Royce, and let them know that I'm going to reach out to the community if they want to join me on that. I tend to use Nextdoor. I know that's unusual, but Nextdoor is good to me. It usually gets me some good feedback, and I've had people private messaging me if they want to offer up their home on there. But let's see where they fit within the contour and the heat map on that, and then see what member Ortiz and Royce want to do to make sure that we're doing that. The heat map might help them too, with the exception of Rollins Road, because nobody lives there yet, but they're going to be living there within the next 2 years. I just hope that they're putting in the better windows and better insulation.
Well, I mean, if you do construction within the contour, you have to,
They're outside the contour.
okay? They would be smart to.
I said, I tried for our Rollins, or our affordable housing unit, and they pushed back, but ultimately they put in the better windows once they started working it. And but to be honest, it's actually quieter right there at the end of one right than it is at my house. Because I've been down there a lot. I've been down doing walkthroughs. We're getting ready for the grand opening. It's funny how much quieter it is. Of course, I'm there during the day, and the nighttime sounds are different than the daytime sounds. Okay, closing, opening up any last comments on agenda item 2.
There are no public comments.
Okay, closing public comments for item 2. We're done with 2. Well, we're actually on agenda item 3. Jean, do you want to give us a brief update? We're on agenda item 3. And thank you all for that kind of collaborative getting into the dirt, into the details. Thank you so much.
Well, and I think this is less of an update, just more of a, where do we want to take it for San Francisco, knowing the results of the Seattle project, the ground-based noise project we did there. So there were, if I remember right, like 7 recommendations that came from that. One was the rolling takeoffs. I think that's relatively problematic at San Francisco as compared to Seattle, because you have those 2 intersecting runways, and they have to operate together. They have to both be ready to go at the same time off of the ones, that sort of thing. They have to be really correlated. So, but during low volume operations, perhaps something like that can happen. So that was one, was the rolling takeoffs. The next one was single engine taxi operations. There, I think we felt could implement at San Francisco, but probably not a lot of benefit, because until you turn onto the runway, you're really not exposing much of the community. And so whether that would be a help or not, and plus by the time you are onto the runway, you have to have already your second engine on and be ready to take off. So, you know, somewhere during that last phase of the taxi operations is where you'd have to turn it on. And that's again, when you're close to the community. That's different than Seattle. You're close to the community, the whole taxi lane, essentially. So a little bit different.
Gene,
Another, yep.
before you go to the next one, so I understand what you're saying for single engine taxi, that, you know, for the most part, then the jet, I'm gonna put it in my terms, it's pointing back into the airport, you know, more towards the bay than it is outside until it gets ready for takeoff, and then the engines are there. But if I'm in my Marina Vista neighborhood, what you hear all day long and a little bit less at night is a constant hum from the jet operations at the gates. So, but the APU, when they're running their APU for doing measurement testing, that's one engine, right? And when they're at the gates for the international terminal, the jet are pointing at Marina Vista neighborhood. And it's a little bit quieter now because they did rubberized asphalt on 101. I tried to get the managed lane to give me the date so that we could do the data, and they were not cooperative, but I can tell that it's quieter. And it's really for Hillsborough, I would say Hillsborough should be pushing, all of us should be pushing rubberized asphalt on 280. It's significantly, you can tell the difference on it. And then the sound walls they put on 280 are just concentrating noise up there. But would the taxiing, would the one engine make any difference as they're taxiing outright by the international terminal and by Terminal 1, and especially the new gates on Terminal 1? Does it make any difference there?
It could. If you're hearing it, it would be, you know, 3 decibels less if they turned one of the engines off. That's how that works. So
Well, I think it's tough because it's not a single airplane. It's the fact that at that point, there are many, many airplanes all doing something different. They could be getting to the gate, they could be sitting at the gate, they could be backing up from the gate, they could be taxiing. So it's not one airplane, 3 decibels, it's that cumulative kind of roar. If you sit in that neighborhood, it's just a low level roar that's constant.
right, so taxi is one element of that. So like I said, if you reduce that one aircraft noise by 3 decibels, then the other stuff, you know, you'd have to deal with separately. You know, if they're at the gate, they're using their APU, none of the engines are on. It's the APU, which is in the back of the airplane. And you know, that's another thing, is minimize use of APUs. That was actually the last element of the Seattle ground-based noise study, was to minimize use of APUs, and San Francisco is already doing that. They have ground power at each of their gates, I believe. So,
And are we getting reports of the airlines complying? Because when I first came on board, IVAR went and checked and found that a number of airlines were not complying to their contract, which is they can only run them for 30 minutes.
well, our experience nationwide has been, it depends on the length of the turn. I mean, if they're really going to there, offload passengers and immediately board passengers, they may not switch to ground power. But if they're there any length of time longer than that, they typically do.
Maybe, is that something we can ask the airport to ask the airlines to report on?
We're finding that the airlines are actually very compliant, and we are monitoring it.
Okay.
They want to use it, it's cheaper for them.
Right. So
To
they
use
get off
the
the
airport.
gas.
Yeah.
They're not using
Yeah.
fuel. And it's just part of their lease that they get air conditioning and ground power. So they like it. And we find that most airlines, as soon as they hit the gate, boom, and they're plugged in, they're done. They shut it off.
I'll pay more attention. I've flown out twice in the last couple of weeks, and once on Terminal 1, not international until Ramallah, watching Israel bombing each other again. I'm on that, so that'll be my next time out of international terminal. Okay. I will say I'm getting much more complaints for fuel smells, but that's a battle for a different time.
Can't do anything.
Okay,
Maybe we try it, Gene? See what happens?
try what?
The single engine taxi?
Well, what we want to do is kind of come up with recommendations for San Francisco. That is something that you could ask them to look into to see if they thought it'd be a benefit. Like I said, I think it'd be a limited benefit, but like you said, around Terminal 1 there, maybe it is a more benefit. So maybe in that area, they see if they can get the airlines to comply with the single engine taxi.
We have spoken with the tower about it, and as far as the airport goes, most of the airlines wouldn't mind doing it. Problem is, if they're coming off the A and B terminals, too close to the runways, they have to have all the engines running. If they're coming off of C, D, E, and the F in the future, they'll want to be, they wouldn't mind doing it until they got around the top of the airport by the old Terminal 2. Then they can switch on at that point.
In which case, does it make any difference in that location?
Right, and that's what we're hearing at other places like Seattle as well. At some point, they have to turn their engines on. They can't not be ready to take off when it's time. And so probably somewhere around Terminal 1 or 2 is where they'd have to turn them on. So you're right. I don't think we could actually get benefit if it's really looking at Terminal.
Well, then-
Yeah, and the other thing too is having the front of the engines pointed towards the city. There's a significant amount of noise that comes out of the front of the engine too.
When we have, on the next Noise 101, will we be down on the tarmac to listen?
Oh, we might be able to.
Because that was good, my first one, when you took us out between 28 and we could see things coming through. It's been a long time to get that experience and refresh it.
No,
Okay.
All right, well,
Yeah.
the next one is engine run-ups, and I believe San Francisco's done pretty well at this. Their engine run-ups are more towards the middle of the airfield or towards the bay. And so, but you could always research and see, but I think San Francisco just did this a few years ago, if I remember right. So that was the other one, was to try to figure out good engine run-up locations. Are there better than what they're using now? So that in Seattle, it was doubtful they would be able to move them actually. This is probably something that in Seattle they won't move them.
You know, I did, and having recently been flying in and out and paying attention, I think with the run-ups, because they're at night, people hear them and they hear it. It's never as bad as, say, that Amazon flight leaving at 2:12 a.m. But maybe if we could map out where the noise tends to travel, we can at least say, that's what you're experiencing. It's a necessary part to make sure that the engines are running up properly and we can accept it. But mapping it out, being able to visualize it, understanding that it's happening and why it's happening might make it easier.
Gene, if I can steal your thunder for a moment, I'll show an airport map.
Go ahead. It's actually not me anyway.
You are.
I will
Sorry.
tell you, the two flights that I left out in recently, both spent an extra 2.5 hours at the gate, both united, and then did run-ups at the gate for 15 minutes.
I was just engine on. That's what that is.
Oh, but it was pretty darn loud, because we were sitting in the, well, one was in the terminal and the other time I was in the plane.
Yeah, they're not supposed to at the gate at all.
That's what they told us. They said, oh, we're doing some run-ups to test because they had sensors out, they had to do some engine repair. And I just got to be lucky enough twice in row
Wow.
departures.
I think they could do an engine run.
Yeah.
But not an
engine
engine.
run.
Okay,
And
Correct.
I heard run and said run up. Okay,
they can test, they can turn the engine, because I understand, they can turn the engine on at the gate and they
okay.
Run the systems,
can,
everything.
run up means power up,
Yeah.
big noise.
Land on the gas.
Okay. Well,
So-
San Francisco Airport Terminal is getting pretty darn quiet coming through the new Terminal 1 with all the signs of quiet zone and.
So here's our two primary run-up areas here. This one with the concrete widget on the ground is very easy to see. That's one of our run-up pads. There's another one here. And all the time they use these, the nose would face west, tail out over the bay. And this one here is used during southeast plan, reverse flow, odd winds, things like that. And it's called the Charlie 1 or Charlie 2, sorry, taxiway run-up pad. And again, typically they have the tail end
So we're only getting that front end noise then.
on this one. Yeah, it's rarely used though. These two are
Okay.
big.
Yeah, I don't know. Eventually it would be nice to get one kind of win, and that's when we go back to nature-based solutions versus sound walls. So I think at this point, let's just hang on to it, Jean. I mean, there's nothing really from that other than letting close-in communities know that this is a necessary part of running a safe aircraft.
Yep. And then the next one was trying to minimize use of thrust reverse. At Seattle, they already had a voluntary restriction that the airlines during times of basically dry pavement, because you need thrust reverse if the pavement's wet, but if you have dry pavement, they were some of the operators were not using thrust reverse on arrival during the night. And so what Seattle's in the midst of is actually doing that all times of the day now, if there's dry pavement. And of course, in Seattle, it rains more than it doesn't. And so the benefit is not as great as some other places, but you could look at San Francisco maybe doing that if you felt that thrust reverse noise on arrival was an issue in the community.
I think once we've got the temporary monitors on Rollins Road, and so many of the flights come in on 28, that would be the area that would hear more of the reverse thrust.
Being low frequency noise spreads far and wide.
So maybe it's worth to hang on to that one, but maybe once we get the other study done, we can come back and look at reverse thrust. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
And then
She's
the
surprised at how
last,
short they use reverse thrust on a 28 arrival. It doesn't seem to be very long. You go from moving to stop pretty fast.
Most aircraft are certificated with the brakes. Used to be you had to certificate with reverse thrust as well. A lot of the newer ones don't.
yeah, thrust reverse doesn't last very long. It's usually just a few seconds.
We are at time, and I know all of you, but not me, are staying for the technical working group, so that I think this is great. I thank all of you today. It's a little bit more relaxed. It's like being back in person after COVID. Everything feels really weird, but thank you for that. I wish you good luck with TW. Oh, I'm sorry, public comment for SEA-TAC. I think we've got a few things to report out. They'll show up in the minutes, and we'll come back and address single engine taxi and reverse thrust. Rolling takeoff, we get the problematic issue because of our unique cross runways. And then the run-ups, I have told Bert that I'm hearing something new now, a higher pitch sound. You told me it might be our new buildings, but those buildings have been in their structure form for 3 years. I'm still hearing it periodically. Maybe, yeah, it's a new thing, and it's not happening as frequently as when I told you, but then we've had rain. So we'll see what happens when we get back to our more typical California drought on that, or inversion layers, or everything else on that. So I thank you all. I thank you for the great setup down here. It is a nice room, and I wish you luck with your ground-based noise. See, I am not with it today. Technical working group. I poured my coffee and left it sitting on the counters. Definitely need my coffee.
All right, I'm going to take about a 15-minute break and then I'll call back in.
Yep, you guys have your break. Go enjoy. Oh, meeting is adjourned.